The icy December wind whipped around me, a cruel prelude to the storm brewing in my front yard. I stood, hands on my hips, chest heaving, not from the exertion of wrangling a 30-foot Norway spruce onto my property, but from the sheer audacity of the pint-sized dictator currently tapping her perfectly manicured foot on my frosted lawn. "Mr. Henderson," Mildred Finch began, her voice a brittle icicle. "We've been over this." I sighed, a puff of white vapor against the gray sky. "Mildred, it's Jack. And yes, we have. You informed me, with the enthusiasm of a tax auditor, that my festive aspirations exceed the architectural guidelines of this esteemed community." She brandished a laminated card, an almost comically official-looking document. Bylaw 7, G, subsection 3. Outdoor holiday decorations, including live trees, shall not exceed 15 feet in height from the base of installation to the highest point. Highest point being the star, I assume? I countered, a wry grin fighting its way onto my face. Because frankly, Mildred, this beauty doesn't even have a star yet. She's naked, vulnerable, and far more glorious than anything that paltry 15-foot rule could ever hope to contain. My beauty was, indeed, a magnificent beast. I'd spent all morning at Farmer McGregor's Christmas tree farm, battling a tractor-trailer load of lesser pines to claim this one. McGregor, a man whose beard rivaled the tree's girth, had slapped me on the back with a gnarled hand and declared, "Son, that there's a proper tree. Best on the lot. Don't let no city folk tell you otherwise." His words, I now realized, were eerily prophetic. "The bylaw is unambiguous, Mr. Henderson," Mildred pressed, her eyes, usually narrowed in suspicion, now widened in what I can only describe as a triumphant glare. "And your beauty is, by my conservative estimate, twice that height." "Conservative estimate?" I scoffed. "Mildred, I saw you out here with a tape measure and a stepladder at dawn. You practically scaled the thing. You looked like a very determined, very small elf." Her cheeks flushed a faint pink, a rare crack in her perfectly composed facade. "My dedication to the integrity of this community is unwavering, unlike some." She gestured pointedly at the towering evergreen, still strapped precariously to the flatbed trailer. "Unwavering dedication or unwavering obsession?" I muttered, more to myself than to her. "Look, Mildred, this is Christmas. It's about joy, about spirit, about having the biggest damn tree on the block. Everyone else just buys those prefab plastic things. This is real." "Real or not, Mr. Henderson, it is a violation, and as such it is subject to a daily fine of $100 until such time as the violation is rectified." My jaw dropped. $100 a day? Are you serious? Mildred, that's extortion. That's Scrooge-level villainy. "It is written," she stated, as if quoting ancient scripture. "And the fines will begin accruing tomorrow morning, unless, of course, you choose to rectify the situation." She emphasized the word with a chillingly sweet smile, her gaze drifting pointedly towards the base of the tree. I knew what she meant. Hack it down. Dismember my magnificent pine. "You want me to take a chainsaw to this work of art?" I cried, aghast. "This glorious monument to festive cheer? This symbol of all that is right and good in the world?" "Or you can pay the fines," she replied, shrugging her shoulders with a feigned innocence that made my blood boil. "The choice, Mr. Henderson, is entirely yours. Good day." And with that, she turned on her heel, her sensible walking shoes crunching on the frozen grass, and marched back to her pristine, perfectly manicured home. I watched her go, a tempest of frustration swirling inside me. $100 a day. That was nearly $700 a week, $2,000 by Christmas. I wasn't made of money. I walked around the colossal tree, running my hand over its prickly needles. It smelled of pine and possibility, a scent now tainted by Mildred's officious decree. How could something so beautiful be so illegal? It wasn't causing any harm. It wasn't blocking anyone's view. It was simply tall, gloriously, defiantly tall. Defeated, I trudged inside, the festive spirit seeping out of me like air from a punctured inflatable Santa. I put on a kettle for hot chocolate, the only solace I could find in this bleak, treeless future. Staring out my living room window, mug clutched in both hands, I gazed at the majestic, still undecorated behemoth. It stood there, a silent sentinel, a testament to my thwarted holiday ambitions. My dream of transforming my suburban home into a winter wonderland, a beacon of twinkling joy, lay shattered, impaled on the sharp, legalistic branches of Bylaw 7G, subsection 3. The hot chocolate tasted like ashes. My Christmas tree, my beautiful, glorious Christmas tree, was officially too tall, and I had no idea what to do. The next morning dawned with a fresh layer of frost on my windows and an even heavier layer of gloom on my soul. I dragged myself out of bed, the prospect of another day under Mildred's watchful eye feeling like a physical weight. Every time I looked out at my towering pine, still strapped to the flatbed, my frustration boiled anew. I tried to imagine it lopped in half, a stumpy, pathetic shadow of its former glory, and my stomach churned. No, absolutely not. I was nursing a particularly strong cup of coffee, contemplating the existential dread of holiday regulations, when my phone buzzed. It was Uncle Ted. My Uncle Ted wasn't just eccentric, he was a walking, talking anomaly. A self-proclaimed free thinker and practical innovator, he lived off the grid in a cabin powered by solar panels and sheer willpower, emerging only for family crises, free food, or to deliver what he called wisdom bombs. "Jackie boy," his voice boomed through the receiver, crackling slightly, as if he was calling from another dimension. "Heard you got yourself a bit of a tree-tastrophe." I chuckled, despite myself. "Word travels fast, Uncle Ted. Mildred must have sent out a newsletter. Yes, my magnificent spruce has been deemed an ecological threat to the fabric of suburban conformity." "Ah, Mildred," he mused, a low chuckle rumbling in his throat. "A formidable opponent indeed, like a terrier with a particularly annoying squeaky toy. So, what's the plan? You gonna chop it down and embrace the tyranny of the miniature?" "Never!" I exclaimed, a spark of indignation reigniting in my chest. "I refuse to surrender to the cult of the 15-foot tree. But I'm stumped, literally. I can't pay those fines. I can't get rid of the tree. I'm in a festive pickle." "A festive pickle, eh?" Ted's voice took on that thoughtful, slightly manic edge I knew so well. It usually preceded either a brilliant idea or an explosion. "Well, Jackie boy, sometimes when they tell you can't go wide, you gotta go up." "I did go up, Uncle Ted. That's the problem. The tree is 30 feet tall." No, he chided gently. "You went up with your tree. You need to go up with their vertical real estate. Think outside the box, Jack. Think beyond the pine needle. Think infrastructure." I paused, coffee cup halfway to my lips. "Infrastructure?" I repeated slowly. My eyes, which had been fixed on my defiant, undecorated spruce, slowly drifted to the horizon. And then I saw it. It stood on the edge of town, just beyond the last row of identical suburban houses, a metal giant piercing the winter sky. A colossal, skeletal structure of steel and wires. It was the main cell phone tower for our area, a utilitarian behemoth that most people barely registered, seeing it as just another part of the urban landscape. To me, it had always been a looming, slightly ugly eyesore. But now, in the frosty morning light, with Uncle Ted's words echoing in my ears, vertical real estate, infrastructure. It transformed. It wasn't ugly. It was a blank canvas, a 30-story steel Christmas tree. A slow, incredulous grin spread across my face. "Uncle Ted," I breathed, the idea taking root and blossoming with dizzying speed. "You are a genius." "Just an old man who's seen a few things," he humbly demurred, though I could hear the pride in his voice. "So you're thinking—" "I'm thinking," I said, my voice rising with excitement. "If Mildred won't let me have a tall tree, maybe I can have a tall tower. She can't fine me for decorating a cell phone tower, can she? It's not on my property. It's not a tree." "Legally speaking," Ted mused, "a cell phone tower is not typically classified as outdoor holiday decoration under standard homeowners association bylaws. You might just have yourself a loophole, Jackie boy. A beautifully lit loophole." My heart was pounding. This was it. This was my defiance, my answer to Mildred's petty tyranny. This wasn't just about a Christmas tree anymore. It was about reclaiming the spirit of the season, about going bigger and bolder than anyone thought possible. It was about pure, unadulterated, festive rebellion. I started pacing, my mind a whirlwind of fantastical images, lights, thousands of them, a star so massive it would be visible from space, giant candy canes wrapping around its base. It would be magnificent. It would be absurd. It would be mine. "Okay, Uncle Ted," I said, my voice crackling with newfound energy. "This is insane. This is probably the dumbest, most brilliant idea I've ever had. But I'm doing it. I'm decorating the cell phone tower." "That's the spirit," he cheered. "Now the devil's in the details, son. You'll need permits, sure, but more importantly, you'll need some serious gear and a serious crew." I grabbed a notepad and pen, already scribbling furiously. "Gear, crew, right." My list began to grow, each item more ridiculous than the last. Lights, approximately 100,000 feet of industrial-grade, weather-resistant LED string lights, the kind they use on national monuments, probably in warm white, or maybe multicolored. Definitely multicolored. Go big or go home. Extension cords, enough to power a small city. We're talking miles. Heavy-duty, outdoor-rated, probably costing more than my car. Star. Not just a star, the star, a beacon, something that screams Christmas from 20 miles away. Must be at least 20 feet wide. Solar-powered, maybe? Or I'll need another mile of cord. Ornaments. Forget glass baubles. We're talking inflatable snowmen, giant plastic candy canes, enormous shimmering bows, something that won't get shredded by the wind at 200 feet up. Safety equipment, harnesses, ropes, hard hats, the whole 9 yards. Because while I'm a rebel, I'm not an idiot. Mostly. Industrial-sized hot chocolate. Dispenser, non-negotiable, for moral support and warmth. Permits, oh God, the permits. From the city, from the cell tower company, from the FCC probably. This was going to be a bureaucratic nightmare. A crew. People who are either incredibly brave, incredibly skilled, or incredibly susceptible to the lure of a truly insane Christmas project. Probably all three. I stared at the list, a wild, euphoric laugh escaping my lips. This was it. This was my ultimate Christmas tree. No, not a tree. A monument, a legend. A glorious, illuminated middle finger to Mildred Finch and Bylaw 7G, subsection 3. The Great Christmas Tower project was officially on. The sheer audacity of the cell tower idea initially filled me with a giddy, almost unhinged optimism. Then reality, a cold, hard slap to the face, set in. How was I, a graphic designer by trade whose idea of heavy lifting was moving a particularly stubborn armchair, going to decorate a 300-foot metal structure? I needed a crew. A very special, possibly deranged crew. My first port of call was Sparky's Electric Solutions, a local outfit with a questionable safety record but a reputation for taking on unusual jobs. I walked into their cluttered office, the air thick with the smell of ozone and stale coffee, and found Frank. Frank was a human caricature of a grumpy electrician. Grease-stained overalls, a perpetually furrowed brow, and a voice like gravel being dragged across asphalt. "So," Frank grunted, barely looking up from a wiring diagram that looked suspiciously like a child's scribble. "What's the unusual job?" "I want to decorate the cell phone tower on the edge of town," I said, trying to sound confident. He slowly put down his diagram, peered at me over the top of his safety glasses, and then burst into a cackle that rattled the cheap fluorescent lights. "You serious, kid? Decorate a cell tower? What, you want to hang tinsel on the antennas? You want to power 1,000 fairy lights from a signal booster?" "Well, yes," I admitted, slightly deflated. "Something like that. With industrial-grade LEDs, of course, and a giant star." Frank wiped a tear of laughter from his eye. "Look, pal, I've wired up a petting zoo. I've put lights on a miniature golf course's windmill. I even once tried to electrify a squirrel feeder to deter raccoons. That didn't end well. But a cell tower? That's not a Christmas tree. That's a highly sensitive piece of national infrastructure. You need a permit, a team of high-altitude specialists, and probably a psychiatric evaluation." "I'm working on the permits," I insisted, "and I'm hoping you guys could be the high-altitude specialists." He just shook his head, still chuckling. "Get out of here. Go home, put some lights on a cactus. It'll be less hassle." Defeated but not deterred, I tried a few construction companies. The conversations were variations on a theme. "Hello, Acme Construction, this is Brenda." "Hi, Brenda, my name is Jack Henderson. I have a rather unique project I'd like to discuss." "We do bridges, commercial buildings, residential foundations. What's your project, Mr. Henderson?" "I'm planning to decorate the cell phone tower with Christmas lights." Click. It was becoming clear that my vision, however brilliant, was not resonating with the conventional workforce. I was starting to lose hope. Was I truly insane? Was Mildred right? Was my Christmas spirit simply a deluded desire for public spectacle? Then, a flicker of hope. My friend Sarah, who worked in city planning, mentioned a guy named Gus. "Gus runs a small rigging and installation company," she'd said. "He's a bit of a maverick, takes on jobs nobody else will touch. You know, like putting a giant inflatable gorilla on the roof of a car dealership, or hoisting a 6-ton statue of a disgruntled gopher onto the town square clock tower. He's either brilliant or completely bonkers, probably both. You guys might get along." "Bonkers sounds about right," I'd muttered. I found Gus's shop tucked away in an industrial park. A sprawling mess of ropes, cranes, and various unidentifiable metal objects. Gus himself emerged from behind a mountain of tangled cables, looking like a grizzled pirate who'd traded his ship for a forklift. He was a bear of a man, with a wild gray beard, a booming laugh, and eyes that held a surprising spark of mischief. "You're the fella who wants to make the cell tower a Christmas tree?" he asked, extending a hand that felt like a catcher's mitt. "That's me," I said, bracing myself for the inevitable laughter. Instead, Gus merely grunted. "Interesting. Heard some chatter. Most folks think you've lost your marbles. I kinda like it." My jaw dropped. You like it?" "Course I do. Putting up lights on a regular house is for squares. This is a challenge, and I love a good challenge. So tell me, how big's this star gonna be?" I explained my vision, the endless lights, the giant ornaments, the sheer scale of it all. Gus listened intently, occasionally stroking his beard, his eyes gleaming. "Right," he finally said. "So we'll need the big rig. My man, Lenny, he's a wizard with the crane. And my safety guy, old man Hank, he's a bit of a stickler, but he'll make sure nobody falls. And then there's Tina, she's green. but she's got a head for heights and an appetite for adventure. He led me outside, where his crew was already milling about. First was Lenny, a tall, lanky man whose hands, despite their size, moved with surprising delicacy as he checked the hydraulics on a massive mobile crane. He had a perpetually calm demeanor, even when talking about hoisting multi-ton objects. "Lenny, this is Jack. Jack wants us to turn the cell tower into Santa's personal landing strip." Lenny merely nodded, a slight smirk on his face. "Sounds like a good way to get some attention. Can we get a winch up there for the star? How many amps we talking for these lights?" Next was Hank, a compact man with a neatly trimmed white mustache and an eagle eye. He was meticulously checking ropes and harnesses, his movements precise and deliberate. Hank was a retired Marine, and he ran a tight ship when it came to safety. "Mr. Henderson," Hank said, his voice clipped and efficient, "you understand the risks involved in high-altitude work on an active transmission tower? We'll need all the proper fall protection, redundancy systems, and communication protocols in place." "Absolutely, Hank," I assured him, already liking his no-nonsense approach. "Safety is paramount." "Good," he grunted, giving me a penetrating stare that made me feel like I was being evaluated for basic training. "Because if anyone so much as sneezes without a tether, I'm pulling the plug." Finally, there was Tina. She was young, probably early 20s, with vibrant pink hair and an almost blinding enthusiasm. She was clambering around a scaffold, testing a pulley system with a grin. "Hey," she chirped, hopping down. "You're the Christmas Tower guy Gus told us. This is going to be epic. Do you think we can get some glitter cannons up there for the grand unveiling?" I blinked. Glitter cannons? I hadn't thought of glitter cannons. "Think of the sparkle," she exclaimed, her eyes wide. "It'll be legendary." I looked at Gus. He just shrugged, a twinkle in his eye. "She's got spirit, and she's surprisingly good at knot tying. Comes in handy." I shook my head, a slow smile spreading across my face. This was it. My motley crew. A seasoned rigger, a meticulous safety guru, a gung-ho rookie, and a calm, capable crane operator. And me, the mad visionary with a grudge against a miniature Mildred. "All right, team," I said, feeling a surge of confidence. "Let's make this cell tower the most spectacular Christmas tree this country has ever seen." Gus clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Lenny, start looking into the crane permits. Hank, let's get a full safety assessment of that tower. Tina, you and Jack can start brainstorming glitter cannon logistics." Tina pumped her fist. "Yes!" As I walked out of Gus's shop, a renewed sense of purpose invigorated me. This wasn't just about proving Mildred wrong anymore. It was about the thrill of the impossible, the joy of creation, and the unexpected camaraderie of a group of strangers brought together by the sheer lunacy of a truly monumental Christmas project. My cell phone tower was about to get a serious dose of holiday cheer. The week before Christmas was a blur of organized chaos. My house, once a haven of quiet suburban living, had transformed into a command center. Blueprints, diagrams of wiring schematics, and sketches of giant ornaments were plastered across my dining room table. Coffee flowed like water, and the aroma of pine, ironically, was nowhere to be found. Instead, it was the metallic tang of ambition, mixed with the faint scent of Gus's crew, who seemed to permanently smell of oil and ingenuity. Our first major hurdle, after securing the necessary and surprisingly complex permits from the city and the tower's operating company, was the sheer logistics of getting everything up. The cell tower, while an impressive structure, was not designed for holiday ornamentation. "All right, team," Gus boomed on the first morning, surveying the towering structure with a critical eye. "Lenny, you're on the crane, getting the main light strands up. Hank, you're supervising all safety lines. Tina, you're with Jack, feeding lines and making sure he doesn't accidentally electrocute himself trying to artfully arrange the wiring." Hey, I protested, adjusting my hard hat. I'm a quick learner. Tina, already geared up in her harness, gave me a mischievous grin. Sure you are, boss. Just remember, red wire goes to the red socket, not the blue one. Unless you want a light show that lasts about 5 seconds. The initial stringing of lights was an exercise in patience and precision. Lenny, with the grace of a seasoned ballet dancer, maneuvered the massive crane, slowly lifting spool after spool of heavy-duty LED lights, each one hundreds of feet long. Hank, meanwhile, barked out instructions, his voice echoing across the field, ensuring every carabiner was double-checked, every anchor point secure. "Henderson, your harness feels snug?" Hank asked, peering at me. "Snug as a bug in a rug, Hank," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt, swaying slightly as I leaned out to secure a light strand. "Good. Bugs don't fall out of rugs. You don't fall off this tower." Our first real mishap came on day 3. We had managed to get about a third of the tower covered in brilliant, warm white lights, and the initial effect was breathtaking. But then, as Tina and I were feeding another massive strand up to Lenny, who was now a tiny figure high above us, the entire reel of lights decided to stage a dramatic rebellion. "Whoa!" Tina yelled, as the massive wooden spool, weighing nearly 100 pounds, slipped from its stand and started rolling precariously towards the ditch. "Grab it!" I shouted, lunging forward. We both threw our weight against it, but the spool, fueled by its own momentum, was determined. It bounced, sending a spray of muddy water onto my face. Just as it seemed destined for the murky depths, a patrol car pulled up, lights flashing. Officer Miller, a local cop known for his love of donuts and community policing, stepped out, looking perplexed. "Everything all right here, folks?" he asked, his hand resting on his service belt. He eyed the partially lit tower, then the mud-splattered light spool, then Tina's pink hair, then my disheveled, hard-hatted appearance. "Officer!" I gasped, still wrestling with the runaway spool. "Perfect timing. Just a minor technical glitch in our Christmas operation." Officer Miller slowly raised an eyebrow. "Christmas operation? Mr. Henderson, what exactly is going on here? I got a call about suspicious activity and bright lights making the cows nervous." He looked up at the tower, his jaw slackening. "Are those Christmas lights on the cell tower?" "Indeed they are, officer," I said, beaming proudly, having finally brought the spool to a halt. "We're turning it into the biggest, brightest Christmas tree the world has ever seen." He stared at me for a long moment, then at Tina, then at the tower again. You're joking, right?" "Nope," Tina chirped, wiping mud from her cheek. "It's gonna be epic. Glitter cannons are still pending approval, though." Officer Miller sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "All right. Walk me through this, Mr. Henderson, slowly, and tell me you have permits for whatever this is." I spent the next 20 minutes giving him the condensed version. Mildred, Bylaw, 7G. The light bulb moment, Uncle Ted, Gus, and the crew. He listened, his expression moving from disbelief to bewilderment, and finally to a grudging, almost imperceptible smile. "So, to be clear," he said, shaking his head, "your homeowners association told you your tree was too tall, so you decided to decorate a cell phone tower instead, and you have official permission from the city and the cell tower company." "Yes, sir," I confirmed, producing a laminated copy of the permit. He read it slowly, then handed it back. "Well, I'll be. You know, Mr. Henderson, in 30 years on the force, I thought I'd seen it all. But this is a new one. Just try not to make the cows too nervous, all right?" He gave a final, bewildered glance at the tower, shook his head again, and drove off, leaving us to our festive engineering. Another challenge arose with the giant star. It was a masterpiece of aluminum and LED strips, 20 feet across, designed to be hoisted to the very peak. Lenny meticulously prepared the crane, and Hank double-checked every rope. "This is a precision lift, team," Hank announced. "One false move and that star becomes a very expensive frisbee." As the star ascended, slowly rotating against the gray sky, a sudden gust of wind caught it, making it swing wildly. My heart leaped into my throat. "Hold it, Lenny!" Gus roared into his radio. "Easy, slowly, fight the wind!" Lenny, calm as ever, expertly adjusted the crane, fighting the invisible forces of nature. The star swayed, threatened to collide with an antenna, then slowly, agonizingly, came back under control. When it finally settled into its designated position at the very top, a collective sigh of relief swept through the crew. "Nice one, Lenny," Tina yelled, high-fiving me. "Thought we were going to lose our Christmas crown there." I wiped a bead of sweat from my brow. "Me too. My stress levels are higher than that star right now." The days blurred into nights. We worked under floodlights, the tower slowly transforming from a utilitarian structure into a glowing beacon. We wrapped the base in thick, candy cane-striped fabric, creating the illusion of a massive festive trunk. Giant, weatherproof ornaments, red and green spheres the size of beach balls, were carefully positioned using a cherry picker. The banter among the crew was constant. Tina, ever the optimist, kept suggesting new additions, from projected animated reindeer to a rotating disco ball at the top. Hank, the safety hawk, would counter her with stern warnings about wind shear and load capacity. Lenny would occasionally offer a dry, witty comment from his crane cab, while Gus orchestrated the whole symphony of construction, a conductor of chaos. "How's it looking from down there, Jack?" Gus called down to me one evening. I stepped back, shielding my eyes. The tower, now almost fully adorned, was a breathtaking spectacle. Thousands upon thousands of LED lights shimmered, creating a vibrant tapestry of color against the encroaching night. The giant star at the apex pulsed with a gentle celestial glow. It wasn't just a tower anymore. It was a defiant declaration of holiday spirit. It's magnificent, Gus," I said, a lump forming in my throat. "It's better than I ever imagined." He grinned, his wild beard catching the glow of the lights. "Told you it would be. But we're not done yet. Tomorrow we flip the switch. Get ready, Jack. The whole town's about to get a very merry surprise." A mixture of pride and nerves surged through me. We had overcome permits, skepticism, rogue light spools, and treacherous winds. We had built something truly extraordinary. But the real test, the grand unveiling, was yet to come. And I knew with absolute certainty that Mildred Finch would be watching. Christmas Eve arrived cloaked in a pristine blanket of fresh snow, making the world outside my window sparkle with an almost otherworldly glow. Despite the festive beauty, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Tonight was the night. The culmination of weeks of planning, arguing, lifting, and climbing. The moment of truth for Project Christmas Tower. Word had slowly leaked about my peculiar construction project on the edge of town, but most people still assumed it was some kind of elaborate antenna upgrade, or perhaps a new weather station. Nobody, absolutely nobody, suspected the truth. I had purposely kept the final decorative elements under wraps, only allowing glimpses of the work to be seen from a distance, shrouded in the low winter light. As dusk settled, casting long purple shadows, I gathered the neighborhood in my front yard. I'd sent out invitations that simply read, "Join Jack Henderson for a special holiday unveiling. Dress warmly. Prepare to be amazed." Mildred, of course, was there, perched primly in her expensive winter coat, her expression a mixture of frostiness and barely concealed curiosity. She probably thought I was unveiling a new, HOA-approved topiary. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice amplified by a small, slightly crackly PA system Gus had insisted on. "As some of you know, I had a bit of a disagreement with certain local ordinances regarding my chosen Christmas tree this year." I shot a pointed look at Mildred, who tightened her lips. But rather than let that dampen our holiday spirit, I decided to think bigger. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Kids, bundled in snowsuits, whispered excitedly. Adults exchanged confused glances. "It is my sincere hope," I continued, my gaze sweeping across the expectant faces, "that what you are about to see will bring joy and wonder to our community, not just this Christmas, but for many Christmases to come. It's a testament to ingenuity, teamwork, and the undeniable power of holiday cheer. And with that, I present to you the tallest, brightest, most magnificent Christmas decoration you've ever seen." I paused for dramatic effect, letting the anticipation build. Then, with a flourish, I reached for the large, red, industrial-grade switchbox that Gus had installed specifically for the grand moment. Tina, bouncing on the balls of her feet next to me, gave me a thumbs up. Lenny, Hank, and Gus stood by the tower's base, barely visible in the fading light, their faces etched with a mix of pride and apprehension. 10, I shouted, and the crowd, caught up in the moment, joined in. 9, 8, 7. The air crackled with excitement. Mildred's face was a study in controlled suspicion. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With a theatrical grunt, I slammed the switch down. For a split second, nothing happened. My heart sank. Had we failed? Had a wire come loose? Then, with a sudden, breathtaking burst, the cell tower erupted in light. It wasn't just bright, it was blinding. A cascade of thousands upon thousands of twinkling LEDs in every color imaginable burst forth, transforming the cold steel skeleton into a towering, pulsating beacon of festive glory. The giant star at the very top pulsed with a brilliant white light, casting a glow that seemed to reach the heavens. The candy cane-striped base spun gently, catching the light and mimicking a festive trunk. A collective gasp swept through the neighborhood. Then silence. A stunned, reverent silence, broken only by a few awe-struck whispers. Children pointed, their eyes wide as saucers. Adults simply stared, mouths agape. It was more than just lights. It was a phenomenon. Then, a wave of applause, shouts, and cheers erupted, echoing across the snowy fields. People clapped, stomped their feet, and hugged each other. The sheer, audacious beauty of it all was overwhelming. I looked at Mildred. Her face, usually a mask of stern control, was utterly devoid of expression. Her jaw was slack, her eyes fixated on the towering, shimmering structure. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something akin to wonder, perhaps even awe, in her gaze. But then it hardened. She marched directly towards me, cutting through the celebrating crowd like an angry icebreaker. "Henderson!" she hissed, her voice barely audible above the joyful din. "What is the meaning of this? This monstrosity! It's an eyesore! It's a traffic hazard! It's illuminating my prize-winning petunias at an unreasonable hour!" I leaned into the microphone. "Mildred, isn't it beautiful?" She bristled. "Beautiful? It's an act of defiance, a blatant disregard for community aesthetics, and I assure you, I will be reporting this to every conceivable authority." "Go right ahead, Mildred," I said, a confident smile on my face. "Because, you see, a cell phone tower is not a live tree. It is not on my private property. And it is certainly not subject to Bylaw 7G, subsection 3, Her eyes narrowed. Don't be absurd. It's still an outdoor decoration, a gigantic outdoor decoration. Ah, but there's the rub, I explained, enjoying her sputtering frustration. My legal team, which is comprised of one very amused Uncle Ted and a very thorough paralegal friend, confirmed that while the HOA has jurisdiction over private residences and their trees, it has absolutely no jurisdiction over a federally regulated communications tower, especially one that has been granted full permits from the city, the tower company, and the FCC as a temporary public art installation for the holiday season. I pulled out a thick stack of official-looking papers, waving them gently in front of her face. All above board, Mildred. Every single regulation followed. Every T crossed, every I dotted. She snatched one of the papers, scanning it furiously. Her eyes darted back and forth, searching for a loophole, a technicality, anything. But there was nothing. The permits were solid. The legal framework was unassailable. But the spirit of the law, she finally stammered, clutching the paper to her chest. It's clearly designed to prevent oversized displays. And I've provided an oversized display that perfectly skirts your regulations, I said, shrugging good-naturedly. Call it creative interpretation. Call it holiday innovation. Call it the spirit of Christmas, Mildred. You can't find me. You can't stop it. It's here to stay, at least until January 2nd. The crowd, which had quieted to listen to our exchange, suddenly erupted again, this time with supportive cheers for me. "Go Jack!" someone yelled. "Best Christmas tree ever!" another shouted. Mildred looked around, her face a mask of utter defeat. The neighborhood, her dominion, was clearly on my side. Their faces were beaming, illuminated by the glorious glow of the Christmas tower. She was isolated, outmaneuvered, and utterly powerless. With a final, withering glare at me, and an even more hostile one at the brightly glowing tower, she spun on her heel and stomped off, disappearing into the crowd, her perfect posture just a little less perfect. I smiled, watching her retreat. Victory was mine. The Christmas tower shone brightly, a testament to holiday defiance and a perfectly legal, utterly magnificent middle finger to the reign of Bylaw 7G, subsection 3. The cheers swelled, and I knew, with a certainty deeper than any snowdrift, that this Christmas was going to be one for the books. The Christmas tower wasn't just a local sensation. It was a phenomenon. News crews from the state capitol arrived the next day, their helicopters buzzing around the illuminated structure like curious metal dragonflies. My phone rang off the hook with interview requests. Local papers ran front-page stories. Homeowners HOA spat leads to epic Christmas display. The Tower of Tinsel, a daring holiday stunt. I was officially the Christmas Tower guy. People came from all over town and from neighboring communities just to drive past and marvel. They parked their cars along the roadside, drinking hot cocoa, taking pictures, and pointing at the glorious, twinkling spectacle. The cell tower, once a drab utilitarian structure, had become a beloved landmark, a beacon of light and laughter in the cold December nights. I spent Christmas Day basking in the glory, not of personal triumph, but of shared joy. Neighbors I barely knew stopped by with plates of cookies and words of gratitude. Kids pressed their faces against my window, whispering about the magic tower. It felt good, really good, better than any perfectly proportioned HOA-approved tree ever could. Even Uncle Ted called, his voice booming with pride. "Jackie boy, saw you on the news. They called it a testament to the American spirit. You stuck it to the man, son. You made Christmas great again." It was quite an adventure, Uncle Ted, I conceded, looking out at the tower, which seemed to shimmer with a life of its own. Couldn't have done it without your horizontal thinking. Vertical, Jack, vertical, always vertical. The tower remained decorated throughout the winter, its lights a constant source of cheer long after the new year. The cell tower company, initially hesitant, was now thrilled with the positive publicity. They even offered to help fund next year's display, provided I gave them a little space for a small, tasteful banner. I agreed, mostly because Tina had already started sketching designs for a 30-foot inflatable Santa that would periodically shimmy up and down the tower, and I knew I'd need all the help I could get. The most surprising development, however, came in mid-January. I received a text message. It was from an unknown number, but the curt, precise wording immediately identified the sender. Henderson. While still an egregious display of excessive holiday enthusiasm, I must admit, the structural integrity of your tower was commendable. Finch. I stared at the message for a full minute, a slow, incredulous smile spreading across my face. Mildred. She hadn't admitted defeat, not exactly, but commendable structural integrity from Mildred Finch was practically a declaration of undying admiration. It was her highest form of praise, laced with just enough passive aggression to maintain her persona. I chuckled, then typed a reply. Thank you, Mildred. Perhaps next year you'd like to join us for hot chocolate during the setup. We could use your keen eye for detail. I knew she wouldn't, but the fact that I even dared to ask, and that she'd texted me, was a small victory in itself. As the days slowly grew longer and the spring thaw began to set in, Gus's crew returned to carefully dismantle the Christmas tower. It was a more subdued affair than the initial build, but there was a palpable sense of accomplishment among us. So, boss, Tina said, as she coiled the last of the light strands. Same time next year, bigger, better, more glitter cannons? Absolutely, Tina, I confirmed. We've started a tradition, I think. Hank grunted from behind his clipboard. Just make sure you get those permits in earlier this time, Henderson. And I want a full review of the wind load calculations for that inflatable Santa. Lenny merely gave a calm nod from the crane, already plotting the next year's hoisting logistics. I looked at my crew, this unlikely band of misfits and experts who had helped me turn a petty dispute into a community-wide celebration. We had achieved something ridiculous, glorious, and utterly unforgettable. I realized that my original goal of simply decorating a tree had evolved into something far more meaningful. Building connections, sparking joy, and proving that sometimes the best way to deal with a small-minded rule is to respond with large-hearted defiance. My own undecorated spruce, the source of all this magnificent chaos, had long since been removed from my yard. But it hardly mattered. My outdoor Christmas tree wasn't on my lawn anymore. It was on the horizon, a monument of light and laughter towering over the town, a vibrant, twinkling reminder that sometimes, when they tell you you're too tall, you just have to find a bigger canvas. And I, Jack Henderson, the Christmas Tower guy, couldn't wait to see what next Christmas would bring.